What is perimenopause? What does it actually mean? Well, menopause itself is just a moment in time, and it marks the point where you haven't had a menstrual period for 12 months consecutively. So you have menopause on a day, and then the next day you are post-menopausal. But prior to that, for 2 to sometimes 15 years, women experience a slow diminishment and a dysregulation of their key sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen, and also testosterone. But I'll talk about estrogen and progesterone mainly today. And people think, oh, menopause, it starts 50, 60 later on. I don't need to worry about it. But actually, we start to have anovulatory cycles, which means we stop producing progesterone. So we only produce progesterone from our ovaries if we've ovulated from about 35. Most women start about 38, but it's becoming younger and younger. So from about 38, we start to have the odd anovulatory cycle. We start to reduce our levels of progesterone. And actually between the ages of 35 and 50, we reduce our ovarian progesterone production by about 70%, so quite significant. And then around natural menopause, it really drops off that last little bit, 30% or so. And then the estrogen, which seems to have much more of a focus, that tends to not start to diminish until more your mid-40s. So what that means is that quite often in your early 40s to mid-40s, you might be experiencing the symptoms of having too much estrogen in comparison to too low progesterone. And a lot of very common perimenopausal symptoms, especially brain mind symptoms, the brain fog, the overwhelm, feelings of anxiety, depression, extreme headaches, migraines, a lot of those sort of symptoms that are more mind orientated tend to be when your progesterone is a bit lower and your estrogen is a bit too high in comparison. So come mid 40s, then your ovaries are kind of trying to push out just a little bit more estrogen, one more baby. So what happens is that although the ovaries are starting to shut up shop and starting to reduce their production, it'll do so in these spurts. So you'll have these spurts of high estrogen, sometimes as high as when you were much younger, and then literally sometimes within hours the estrogen levels will drop right down. So again, if your progesterone is low and you're suddenly having a spike in estrogen, it's that differential between the too high estrogen in comparison to the progesterone, which causes a lot of the symptoms. I mean, everything from the sweats and the night sweats, the hot flashes, through to the feeling of having ants crawling under your skin, leg twitchiness, dry eyes and dry mouth, vaginal issues, dryness, pain, sphincter dysfunction, bladder urgency, stress incontinence getting worse, gut issues. Progesterone, lines the gut, so gut issues often get a lot worse. I mentioned before anxiety, but also heart palpitations. So there's such a huge range of symptoms, and because most of them can be put down to other things, and because most women these days are juggling just so much stuff, and there is so much going on that is keeping all of our tabs open at the same time, what happens is the adrenals, which do also produce these key sex hormones, obviously not to nearly the same level as our ovaries, they don't get to function in the way that they are designed to. And we exacerbate the symptoms of perimenopause when those poor adrenal glands are having to push out cortisol and adrenaline instead of producing progesterone and estrogen. So one of the key things that we need to be doing in midlife, and it becomes a non-negotiable, to be honest, is to learn how to down-regulate the whole central nervous system. So, and a lot of women are so in such a busy mode that to say to them, oh, you should be meditating, doing some yoga, it's like I can't go from here to there. And it's like I can't stop my mind from going in overdrive. There's no way I could meditate. And the thing is, it's all about starting where you are and unwinding to a point where you can experience relaxation, where you can experience the ability to breathe really slowly, because that is the key thing to activating the vagus nerve. Goes from your brain and down through all of the organs, and the activation of the vagus nerve is that kind of super highway, if you like, through to the opposite of fright and flight, the opposite of being on in that sympathetic nervous system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, the state that we can heal and our adrenal glands can start to produce the hormones that we need them to be producing. So a key thing that all of us need to learn is to do whatever it takes to calm ourselves down so we do get quality sleep, so that we can be in stillness and be with ourselves and actually start to shift things off our plates. Doing yoga practices that help you to unwind to a point where you can just be in stillness in guided meditations is a really, really powerful thing to learn to do. Walking in nature, not chatting to somebody else, but just being in nature. Really very powerful. Learning to breathe in a diaphragmatic way, so using your whole lung capacity, not just chest breathing. You can gargle to extend your exhalation. That is known to help to activate that vagus nerve. Cold water therapy, so cold water showers or even cold water swimming, that's also known to activate the vagus nerve. So things like that. There's a huge amount of study now around intermittent fasting, the power of intermittent fasting. So allowing your gut to heal properly overnight without snacking too late. So having a good period of time overnight where you're not eating and your blood sugar isn't spiking. So trying to just be very mindful of coming out of insulin resistance and into what's called insulin sensitivity. So knowing about nutrition in midlife is really important, because we do need to start eating in a different way. We need to start to eat to support all our hormone production, and also to maximize the elimination process. So i.e. not getting constipated. Constipation can lead to all sorts of issues. It's a number one precursor for stress incontinence, but it's also means that you can become estrogen dominant quite quickly and put on weight around your tummy. So we do not want to be reabsorbing estrogen that should be eliminated. So working with learning about nutrition, super important. Just also understanding what supplements might help you, understanding what BHRT, body identical hormone replacement therapy, is, and how it might help you if you are able to take HRT. These days, HRT is not synthetic like it used to be, so it's not like the pill. Instead, the pill is a synthetic HRT. Instead, most doctors now prescribe a HRT which is derived from wild yam. It's converted in the lab to be exactly the same molecular structure as the hormones that our ovaries produce. So that's why it's called body identical HRT. It's the same derived stuff as bioidentical. Bioidentical just means that it hasn't been regulated. It's not licensed. It's not necessarily a regulated product by the government. So you don't necessarily know exactly what's in the product you might be buying from, say, the internet. Whereas body identical is the name that has been given to regulated HRT. So that is what most doctors in the UK prescribe. There's so much that you can be doing for yourself, but the trouble is when you are in a state where you are overwhelmed with symptoms, when you're not quite sure what's going on. Are you depressed? Have you got gastro problems? Do you need to see a specialist there? Do you need to see a psychologist? Do you need to see a heart specialist? Do you need to see somebody who specializes in bone health? What do you need? It's sometimes hard for yourself and even for the GPs to understand and see a holistic picture and think, gosh, actually it's probably that her hormones are all over the place and she is probably in perimenopause. So understanding what is going on, understanding that this is a life phase that everybody goes through, everybody to some degree or other. So the estimated number of people who have real issues with perimenopausal symptoms is high, and we're talking nearly 80%, it is calculated, of women will have symptoms that disrupt their lives, and of that about 25% have symptoms that are really extremely life debilitating. So only around 20% of women just kind of sail through this stage, and of those we do need to look at the effects of what happens to their bones without estrogen. There's an awful lot of things we need to do as preventative health measures from midlife onwards. So if you want to know more about perimenopause, if you want to know how to stay healthy, fit, strong through perimenopause, if you want to learn the latest information from clinical nutritionists, from GPs who specialize in menopause health, from naturopaths, from energy healers, from pelvic floor physiotherapists, from osteopaths, from myself and from other yoga teachers and Pilates teachers who specialize in perimenopause and postmenopause women's health, then I invite you to check out womenswellbeing.me. So it's an online yoga studio and information hub. It's a one-stop shop to help other women to really get empowered and feel their best through this life phase, so that later on we can really shine and enjoy life to the max, because that's what it's all about. My name is Linda Stevens. I run Linda Stevens Wellbeing and also womenswellbeing.me, and I'd love to be part of your wellbeing journey.